Welcome. This is the Late Late Show with BT, where views with security and law are being provided to you, the public. We're continuing our show. Um, Today's show, we were having technical difficulties, but the show was focused around, we used several people in Espanol issues in addition to a lucky issue, and among our contributions for the show. And it was mentioned that we're focusing on kidnapping stories where the victims grew up in it. And, you know, maybe the parent or the older person in it, found themselves in a situation where nobody would believe them, or they didn't quite know the extent of it themselves. Um, um, or they weren't in complete knowledge of what was going on. But that has been the show. And so we're continuing it again. And we stop with, because we are still experiencing it right now. It hasn't resolved itself. And we're still in court with the child molester with regards to this child molester and rapist. So I did one song as we were closing the show, and I was introducing this particular song because, my mini me and her other, my mini me and my other is in a situation where they need to, and we got an emancipation situation. So unfortunately, there's a situation where, because of all that we have with security and law, it seems like sometimes, situations that those genres experience find themselves here. So security and law finds itself in a situation where, an offender or a kidnapping's accomplice is trying to have legal documents stating something. And then, it's as if then you have to go a legal way to get something when it's not legal in the first place, when there's a crime associated with it. And that is where law and security gets real complicated, because, offenders, sometimes it seems like the industry be up against offenders trying to use law or the system, whatever you want to call it, to identify something as legal. So it's like, if you're getting this as a result, it's like they're trying to get something else in there as a result too, and have law co-sign that this is a legal document, this was granted or this was taken away legally. So it can be very complex and very complicated. But I mentioned that my mini-me, Rihanna was a slow sale, and it's just one of those things when you're put in something, sometimes it takes like someone's been kidnapped and been in that situation for over a decade, and someone's put in it, like we're getting to Holly Madison, like Rihanna was been. Sometimes it takes time to grow out of a situation, to gain knowledge of a situation, to then validate somebody's purpose here, that this is why you've been in it. So we had this emancipated situation, and that whole mental abuse that this is who you are, this is who I am to you, and this is who this is, and this is who this is to you. And so that brings us to this, just a way to kind of combat all of that mental abuse and attempt to gain support whether legally, whether unofficially, whether informally, but try to gain support in your mind or your spirit and your actions. And try to do that where you're vulnerable, or where, you know, you're not old enough to have a gun license, or you're not old enough to drive, or you're considered not old enough to make decisions for yourself, or you're identified as a minor. You know, try to have all of this and gain advantage where, you know, generally this is what is perceived of you. So I'm going to do this to just kind of combat all of that, because this is who we are. This is a show with security and law, and this is what it's about. Baby, this is what you came for. Lightning strikes every time she moves. And everybody's watching her, but she's looking at you. Ooh, ooh, you, ooh, oh, you, oh, oh, you, oh, oh, you, oh, oh, you, oh, oh, oh. Baby, this is what you came for. Lightning strikes every time she moves. And everybody's watching her, but she's looking at you. Oh, oh, 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 you. Oh, oh. Go, oh, oh, you, 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 oh, oh, oh. We go fast with the game we play. Who knows why it's gotta be this way? We say nothing more than we need. I say your place when we leave. Baby, this is what you came for. Lightning strikes every time she moves. And everybody's watching her, but she's looking at you. Oh, oh, 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 baby, this is what she came for. Strikes every time she moves. Yeah, 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 yeah. Baby, this is what you came for. Lightning strikes every time she moves. And everybody's watching her, but she's looking at you. Oh, oh, 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 you, 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 oh, oh. You know what else? If I can find this one, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna look for it right now. Let's see. I mean, my mini-me, we just absolutely adore Rihanna now. And I so get what kind of what they were thinking, but it's like with her and Chris Brown, but it's like they're so different, but I get where they were kind of what was kind of bringing them together in it. But it's like there was a cross of a line and boundary that needed to be drawn that wasn't. So, because I'm looking for one of his songs right now if I could find it. And so when I do it, you're like, oh, like maybe if I can find it. I don't think I'm gonna find it. I don't even know what I don't even know what album it's on. If it even is a Chris Brown album song or if it's Yo Gotti. But I'm gonna look it up. I'm looking right now. So I'm not finding it in Chris Brown. So let's go to Yo Gotti. Because this is another song that I'm like, ooh, 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 baby, this is what you came for. Lightning strikes every time she moves. So it's kind of, it's like that. I'm trying to find it. If I can find it. No, I can't find it. That is so unfortunate. No. Darn, I really can't find it. I'll look one more time. Let's see. Oh, okay. So maybe it is not. Oh, maybe I got the name of the song wrong. Maybe it's not what I thought it was. Let's see. I'm looking for one name, and that's not even the name of it. So now let's go back to Chris Brown and see if we can find it. I still can't find it. I'm just gonna leave it alone. Goodness, how sometimes you got the hook and you think this is the name of it, but it isn't. But when this song comes on with Chris Brown, I'm like thinking of Mini-Me, and it gets me moving. It gets me in the groove, So let's see, maybe you get you in the groove too. I'm gonna see if this is it. It might be. Like, some songs I would like getting into Mini-Me, and this is one of them. So let's see. I'm gonna let it run a little bit just to see if it's the right one. Okay, yeah, this is it. So I thought the name of it was Wet, because I was like, he would, because I did a live version. I did vagina monologues, but I renamed it Wet. So I did it from that perspective, instead of vagina monologues, I called it Wet. So I was like, he would, Chris Brown would do a song called Wet, but it's not called Wet, evidently. That's not the name of it. It's like he would. So this is again Mini Me. Wet, 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 wet. Ah, babe, just trying to change your life. Just trying to change your life. Just trying to change your life. Ah, babe. You out of line while you waste my time. I'm trying to smoke, trying to get high. See it in my eyes. I know she playing both sides and telling lies, but might give her a high. She down for the ride. Them painting pictures kill the vibe. Fuck you, live your life. Bad bitches in the white umbrella with the eyes. 10 bad bitches on my side, make them all my wife. Smoking on the finest ganja, she like trying to lie. And all these bitches said she used to it. You wanna go way up? Okay, baby, if you used to it. And I know that you'll grow on me. And I know that you know what you're doing. Wet, 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 wet. Ah, babe. Queen, baby. You from the hood, you're queen, baby. Them G's, baby. I don't really know what Yo Gotti got to do with it. And I know you. And you ain't loyal. I told you bring a friend that's getting boring. Ask me what we are. We just cordial. To make wet butt turn into a pool. She helped him run in the trap, then she go to school. I will play the bass. It's breaking news. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe, I just want to show you off. I don't want to do you wrong. Mirror on the wall, who's supplying something wrong. I get money when I want, when I want. Baby, you can take it off with the sauce. Whole lot of, can't remember what it costs. I feel like a boss, spit on it, lick it off. You know we can run it up. Tell me what you really want. I know I can break you off. Come here, let me break you off. If you ever wanna, I'll be the one you call. If you ever wanna be a star, I'll tell you what it costs. I was gonna put you on. I was gonna put you on. I was gonna change your life, but I don't wanna break your heart. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe, just trying to change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. Oh, oh, baby. You saved your whole sauce. You a little spicy, yeah. Now you're dealing with a boss. I might treat you rightly, yeah. No more messy jewelry, baby. Now you're dripping icy, yeah. You keep hanging around me, baby. You start talking like me. Got my own lingo. I can change your whole lingo. I be swimming in the money, baby, with torpedo. I ain't like these others. That's not my stilo. I'ma call you back on with my shooting CeeLo. I changed my old ways for you, baby. I can change your whole way. Now you wavy. Now you glamorous. I'm out your element. I'm too reckless for you. It's evident. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe. Just trying to change your life. I'm trying to change your life. Just trying to change your life. Oh, babe. Okay, so I said I don't know what the heck a Yo Gotti is doing with it. Like, I don't know what a Yo Gotti is. So maybe I can get a little bit more information real quick. Oh, okay, Yo Gotti. Okay, I don't know, but I'm gonna do it again. This time with the Yo Gotti, but it's still Mini-Me. Still at Mini-Me. You know, like how much you can I do? How much no limit can I do? How much wet can I do? I'm calling it wet, but it's pills and automobiles according to this. But I still call it wet. When it comes on the line, when it comes on the radio, I'm like, that's wet is on. Like, I'm like, oh, you know, it's like Mini-Me, you know, time. So anyway, anytime I do it, it's in Mini-Me. Because that's just what's going on right now. Sorry. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe. Just trying to change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. Just trying to change your life. Oh, baby. Bitch, you out of line. Why you waste my time? I'm trying to smoke, trying to get high, see it in my eyes. I know she playing both sides, the bitch telling lies. My dick give her a high, she down for the ride. Them hating bitches kill the vibe, fuck you, live your life. Bad bitches in Hawaii, umbrella lights. 10 bitches on my side, make them all my wife. Smoking on it like it's gone, and she like China White. And all these bitches said she used to it. She wanna go way up. Okay, baby, if you're used to it. And I know that you'll grow on me. And I know that you know what you're doing. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe. I'm supposed to really be behind bars, baby. Really want to be faithful, but it's hard, baby. Yep, I got the pussy first and then I ignored you. You fucked another, you ain't loyal. I told you bring a finish is boring. And I'm cool. Help count the money trap, then go back to school. It ever play with, it is breaking news. Got pointers on, matching jewels. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe. I just want to show you off. I don't want to do you wrong. Mirror me on the wall. We just want some more. I get money when I want. When I want. Baby, you can take it off. I'm there with the sauce. Whole lot of. Can't remember what it costs. Bitch, you feel like a boss. Spit on it and lick it off. You know we can run it up. Say what you really want. I know I can break you off. Come here, leave off. If you want to, can I be the one you talk? If you want to be a star, I can tell you what it costs. I was gonna put you on. I was gonna put you on. I was gonna change your life, but you gonna break your heart. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe, just wanna change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. Change your life. Oh, babe, really whole sauce. You a little spicy, yeah. Now you dealing with the boss. I'm gonna treat you rightly, yeah. No more. Now you're dripping icy. You keep hanging around me, bitch, talking like me. My own lingo, I can change your whole lingo. I be swimming in the money, baby, with torpedo. I ain't like these. That's just not my stilo. I'm gonna call you back. I'm gonna shoot with stilo. I change my whole ways for you, baby. I can change my whole ways, now you wavy. Now you glamorous, I'm not your element. I'm too reckless for you, it's evident. Wet, 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 wet. Ah, babe. Just trying to change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. Just trying to change your life. Oh, babe. All right, now it's time for Down the Rabbit Hole with, of course, Holly Madison. To my family who inspired me to be a better person. So, of course, since it's dealing with kidnapping that was caught from Detroit and recorded with the likes of Holly Madison, I'm gonna do it from, and since we are having this emancipated situation right now with Mini-Me and my love, of course, that's coming from Mini. I'm gonna read this from Mini-Me's perspective because that's what they share. You know, I've been in this situation and, you know, like was mentioned, and you not know this is the situation that you're in and you're vulnerable and other people are being impacted, other people's sight are being impacted from them attempt, you know, the attempt to have them co-sign that this is who you are. But again, the likes of Rihanna and Holly Madison. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna read as much as we can. I'm not gonna skip around. I'm gonna start from the beginning because it seems like it's in chronological order. So that is how we're gonna do this. And there's an author's note. So let's see. And actually where we were kidnapped from is a holly. Like there's holly in it, so that's where we get this Holly Madison from. So anyhow, let's see. And somewhere along the way, I too bought into the ludicrous fantasy, perhaps even more so than others. I could never admit that to myself at the time because to do so would have been to acknowledge how dark and scary a situation I was in, and how very little in control I was. I'm here because I choose to be. And perhaps the biggest disillusion, I'm here for love. There were many times the hateful backlash made me wish I stayed the broke, awkward 21-year-old waitress I've been before Hef came into my life. But it's also much more than that. It's the unauthorized, never before told story of the Playboy Mansion, the man that holds the key. It's a behind the scenes account of reality television at its most decadent and absurd. It's a cautionary tale. It's a story of betrayal and abuse, but ultimately of survival, success, and redemption. And finally, it's a real life fairy tale with heroines, villains, odd characters, strange happenings, and of course, a happily ever after. But I am here to set the record straight, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So here we go. We are going down the rabbit hole, and we are going down the rabbit hole together, and we are going down the rabbit hole live. I peeled away a corner of the paper to reveal what appeared to be the bright blue cover of a book. So this is in 1988. So I'm gonna say 1988. So this was probably about 3 years after the kidnapping. But still, it's mini me because that's what happens. When something's not cleared. The technical world when a case isn't cleared. It's still it's put all over the place like a million little pieces. On the back of the book was a biography detailing how the orphan Norma Jean became one of the world's greatest movie stars. The other kids treated me like an outsider because they thought I was different. My eyes would scan over the programming list, searching for the titles of any of her movies listed in the book. They let me keep the paper dolls, but they didn't really care for Madonna or Marilyn or some frivolous fascinations. I'm almost embarrassed to admit that because of the film's title, but the title implied had nothing to do with why I liked it. As for Marilyn herself, I was absolutely enchanted with a glamorous creature whose beauty transcended the small television set in my family's living room. On screen, she appeared to have everything she ever dreamed of: fame, beauty, fortune, of course, love. So then we're going to 2002, still not knowing, still years later, decades after not knowing, kidnapped. The bathroom was empty as I swam along in the giant marble tub. Outside the bathroom, the mansion was eerily quiet. We spent yet another evening out at one of the Hollywood's hottest nightclubs. Like clockwork, we went clubbing every Wednesday and Friday before coming home and retiring to Hef's room where we all smoked weed and went through the weird bi-weekly bedroom routine, which is nothing like most people imagine it to be. To an outsider, our evenings looked incredibly glamorous. Seven beautiful women dancing the night away behind velvet ropes and bulging security guards, private table service to cater to our every desire, and exclusive access to the club. All at the expense of the world's most notorious boyfriend, Hugh Hefner. But if you look close enough, each girl appeared to be just a little bit vacant and merely going through the motions of what life ought to be. Life inside the mansion wasn't at all what I expected it to be. Not even close. I had to believe that there was a greater purpose for the choices I had made, whether it was to help advance my career or whether it was truly for love. And depending on the month, the week, and sometimes even the hour of the day, I would waffle back and forth between precisely why I was living a life as nothing more than girlfriend number one to a man who was old enough to be my grandfather. Playing that role quickly became second nature, and the blurred lines of reality made it so that some days I struggled to even remember what I was like before moving into the mansion. They're just paid to be arm candy, the younger crowd would usually surmise. In his eyes, as long as each girlfriend had a substantial allowance to buy nice things and the ability to bask in the reflection of his fame, that's all she needed to be happy. And just like that, I would be swept under the rug with every other scandal and ghost that once played Hugh Hefner, and my memory would involuntarily serve as yet another public reminder of the beauty that is Playboy. If I sunk my head below the water and went to sleep, no one would ever know the truth. Begin at the beginning, the king said very gravely, and go on till you come to the end. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. It had become a goal of mine to see the inside of these walls, and I told myself that I could now happily check that one off the bucket list, which didn't feel far enough, but it was the best I could do. I have been thinking a lot about moving to Los Angeles to try my luck, but I didn't know anyone in LA or have the financial means to make such a big move. A gigantic tour bus traveled the United States and Canada, stopping in 45 cities, testing candidates. We flipped through in absolute hysterics, pointing out all the bare butts. I knew that if I auditioned for the Millennium Playmate and happened to be chosen, my parents wouldn't be thrilled at the prospect of me posing naked, but possibly would have respected my decision. And when I say things were tight financially, I mean they were tight. But I decided it was about to make an investment in my future. I had figured that the first round of photos was just to see if you were cute enough to be called back, and then perhaps we discussed the possibility of more revealing photos. Hi. Oops. I want to be in Playboy, but don't use my topless photo. Of course, I had hopes of becoming the Millennium Playmate, but I sure as hell didn't want a topless photo of myself snapped in the back of a bus to be printed in the magazine. Worrying about it appearing online wasn't even a consideration back then. You might think my failed Playboy casting was the reason I was now sitting in the doctor's office preparing for an expensive cosmetic procedure, but that was really just the straw that broke the camel's back. I wasn't trying to appear stacked per se. I was just trying to balance the proportions of my body while I waited for the bombshell chest I was certain I would one day develop. After a few days of recovery, where I felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest, I finally made it to the mall to buy my first post surgery bra. While I don't regret the surgery, I couldn't have been happier with my body. The credit card debt would end up becoming too much for me to pay off in a timely manner, contributing to money troubles that would end up haunting me in the years to come. Not to mention, apartments in Los Angeles were really pricey, and I was anxious about having to eventually factor that into my already tight budget. I had never felt so naked in an outfit before. The breeze of the air conditioning went right through the thin tank top and tiny spandex shorts as I wore nothing, as if I wore nothing at all. Hooters girls were required to wear tan pantyhose to make their legs look flawless. But to me, they also added a measure of decency. So my mini me is 9 and her man is 9. It really wasn't that bad. I was burning the candle at both ends, and something was bound to give. School would always be there, so if it didn't work out for me, I could easily go back and finish my degree. It's not unusual to graduate from college at 30, but it's a lot less likely to break into acting at that age. Not long after, at a Hawaiian tropic bikini contest in Beverly Hills, one of the event organizers pointed out an older man. Would you be interested in attending a party at the Playboy Mansion? He said, barely taking the time to meet my eyes. But back then, it was the place to be. It was like Cinderella finally scoring an invitation to the ball. Except instead of arriving by horse-drawn carriage, we would board a shuttle at a UCLA parking garage. When we finally made our way around to the backyard, we spotted the most lavish buffet of food I had ever seen. Oh my God, there's Cameron Diaz, she said, pointing to the tall, beautiful blonde sitting at a table nearby. Gorgeous, colorful fabrics clung to every corner of the grand tent rooftop, where faux grass lined the bottom, creating the illusion of some fantastical forest, although I'm quite certain that many of the people in attendance didn't make a habit of reading Shakespeare, and in some cases quite possibly had never even heard of the play the party was named for. It wasn't until we were tucked away in a corner of the tent that I finally spotted our infamous host looking quite gloomy, especially for a man flanked by two of the most breathtaking beauties I had ever seen. I knew I didn't have long before he made his escape, so Heather and I headed towards his table to introduce ourselves. What's that? He asked, clearly having trouble hearing over the crowd. Nice to meet you, darling, Hev said before turning his attention to the next person. After that faithful Midsummer Night's Dream party, Heather and I started getting invited back to the mansion regularly. Without the massive tents and fake grass that the staff sprawled out for the Midsummer Night's Dream soirees, you could really appreciate the true beauty of the property. Lush landscaping, rolling green hills, and exotic birds that roam freely throughout the grounds. In the Playboy culture, it's considered an honor to be chosen as the magazine's Playmate of the Month. The large pictorial includes a poster photo in the center of the issue, hence the name Centerfold. An even bigger honor was to be chosen as the magazine's Playmate of the Year. Hal's new girlfriends weren't all necessarily playmates, but they definitely all aspired to be. In fact, to an outsider, it could easily be misconstrued that the only way a blonde was eligible to be featured in the magazine was to date its editor-in-chief. I remember it striking me as odd that they chose to hole away their mansion bedrooms, but I didn't give it much thought beyond that. As for Hal, he would tuck away in a corner of the pool and play backgammon with two friends, usually the only other males allowed to be in attendance. Occasionally, they would stride over and join the girls in a drink or a game, but they mostly kept to themselves and always focused their attention on Hal. The staffers, who strictly refused all tips, were readily available to wait on us hand and foot. The mansion gym was available to any of the girls who wanted to work out during the party, perhaps a red flag to the expectations placed on the women of Playboy. And a masseuse was on call in the bathhouse for guests looking to further unwind. One afternoon, I was freshening up in the bathhouse and talking with a girl from the buxom woman named Nicole, bounded in and introduced herself. Years later, I was flipping through an issue of Playboy and recognized the busty blonde from the bathhouse. Only this time her name was Coco, and she was married to the rapper Ice-T. It's been her booty that has earned her the most attention, but strange enough, I didn't notice her butt as unusually large back then. Eventually, some of the girlfriends would trickle down from upstairs and idly take their obligatory seat next to Hal at the dining table for the pre-movie buffet. In those early days, Vicky and Lisa, two of Hef's living girlfriends, were incredibly welcoming. The other girlfriends weren't particularly mean, but they didn't exactly roll out the red carpet either. I knew that the role of girlfriend was coveted by many and fleeting for some, so I expected the one to be defensive, protective, and quite frankly, bitchy. Especially this crop of girls look more like garden variety strippers than dazzling Playboy bunnies. The girls would rattle on about how beautiful it was being a girlfriend and how every girl that moved into the mansion would eventually become a playmate. They all had a weekly allowance to buy club clothes and get their hair and nails done, and the afternoons free to spend however they like. As a girlfriend, you just need to be available on the nights when Hef hosted events at the mansion, when clubbing in Hollywood, attended red carpet parties, etc. Back then, none of the girlfriends talked about it. I would be lying if I said I still didn't have dreams of one day scoring a picture on Playboy's iconic pages, and mansion parties were a fun way to spend the weekend. But my main focus was either pursuing an acting career or going back to school. I didn't have time to be Hugh Hefner's on-call trophy girlfriend 7 days a week, nor did I really think I had what it took. After they departed the mansion, the sloppy seven invaded and lowered the bar. Luckily, I had no trouble getting an agent and even managed to land a few bit parts here and there. Heather had given up and decided she was moving back to Pittsburgh. The lease on our apartment was ending, and she told me that her parents had agreed to pay her rent on a new lease, but only if she had her brother, an alcoholic who needed constant babysitting, move in. But as hopeless as the situation seemed, I refused to go back to Oregon. Not only did I not want to burden my parents, I also knew that leaving now would set back any progress I had made in becoming an actress. It's very easy to get transfixed by the magic of this curious world where even the impossible seemed possible, where a small town girl could rub elbows with movie stars and be made to feel like a fantasy. And a dreamy window seat overlooked the backyard. He would call the butler's pantry ahead of time, order a meal, and have it brought out to his car as he drove up the driveway. After the food was delivered to him in a paper sack, he would supposedly speed out the back gate without so much as a hello. Around that time, a few of the girls had suggested that I come out with them for one of the bi-weekly club nights. Hal seemed amused by my childlike excitement, but quickly turned back to his friends. I would not be going back to Oregon. Eventually, I decided to pair a black miniskirt, which, despite its name, was about 3 inches longer than anything any of the girlfriends wore, and a baby blue top with a metal mesh overlay that tied in the back. After analyzing my every angle in the bathroom mirror, I took a deep breath, jumped in my car, and made the 10-minute drive to Hugh Hefner's place. I pulled into the driveway at 9:55 p.m., petrified that I would be the last to arrive. I've always been a stickler for punctuality. There was another girl waiting downstairs named Candace, who appeared to be auditioning for the open girlfriend spot as well. That being said, at the time it was by far the nicest home I'd ever stepped inside. At that particular time, the cast of characters was a motley crew of bottle blondes, a quiet girl named Carolyn, upcoming playmates April, Adriana, and Lisa, Vicky, and Tina Jordan, Help's main girl. Hundreds of men in Bond Dutch trucker hats and women in their obligatory low-rise Frankie B jeans and fedoras, because in 2001, every club girl was just dying to be mistaken for Britney Spears, were bombarding the entryway, clamoring over one another to get the attention of the resident doorman stationed behind the red velvet rope. I have been to nightclubs before, but I was usually one of those unlucky souls not on the list and relegated to the mile-long line that wrapped around the block. One by one, each bottle blonde piled out of the limousine, waiting for help before we made our way inside. Immediately, he began dating these two blonde bombshells, along with another blonde, Brandy Roderick. The age difference, the number of girlfriends, the hint of incest, the fact that all three of the girls' names rhymed, along with Hef's constant public insistence that he had to take Viagra to keep up with all of these women, made the situation truly bizarre. In Los Angeles, the bizarre is often appreciated, if only momentarily, and at that moment in time, Hef and his blonde entourage had become adored mascots of the LA nightclub world. Our VIP table was already stocked with an array of alcohol and mixtures. This was the golden age of bottle service, and Hef indulged in every luxury. Security lined the velvet rope separating our table from the rest of the crowd. If a guy was brazen enough to try to get the attention of one of the girlfriends, security would block them from our table and occasionally escort them outside, depending on how persistent he was. I'm pretty sure that rule existed not so much because Hef was jealous of other men, but because the truth would have burst the public persona he had spent decades crafting. Girls who were caught cheating on Hef would be thrown out of the house immediately. So on these club nights, the girls would dip off to the ladies' room. They head to a corner of the bar hidden from Hef's view, making friends and exchanging numbers with men, like normal 20-something girls should be doing. Back then, he seemed like such a sweet man to me, and this felt unnecessarily cruel. Regardless, I knew it wasn't my place to break the news to him. Not that night, anyway. It doesn't get much creepier than that. But I suppose I had already made up my mind at that point. Looking back, I can't imagine what I was thinking, but I'm also so far removed from what I was feeling back then. I was about to be homeless. I can't even begin to tell you how much vodka and champagne I consumed, aided by the helping hands of the other girls who were all too eager to continue plying me with drinks. While I patted myself on the back for turning down the pills, by the time we left the club, I couldn't have been any more incoherent. On the limo ride back to the mansion, Candace leaned over and whispered to me that all of the girls, myself included, were expected to join Hef in his bedroom. For the better part of the year, the girlfriends went out of their way to convince me that no one was actually intimate with Hef. But when I asked them about it directly, they were incredibly convincing, acting almost appalled by the idea. Why else would all these pretty young girls be jumping through hoops to be girlfriends? If it's that bad, I'll leave. With roughly a third of a bottle of vodka sloshing around my stomach, I stumbled up the mansion's grand staircase and was ushered by the girls towards Hugh Hefner's bedroom suite. Tina brought me to the back door of the bedroom, which led into the large black and yellow bathroom. All the girlfriends in various stages of undress conglomerated around the large black marble bathtub with their feet dangling in the pool of hot water. Before I even had a chance to register much of what was going on, the girls quickly got up and hightailed it into the dark, cavernous room beyond. They all hated the bedroom's routine and tried to get it over with as quickly as possible. As Tina led me into the bedroom, I stumbled over and weaved through massive piles of junk covering the floor. In the middle, a very pale man was tending to his own business, if you're catching my thinly veiled innuendo, and puffing on a joint before passing around to the nearest blonde. The girlfriends in various stages of undress were sitting in a semicircle at the edge of the bed, some kneeling, some standing, and some lying down. I sat myself on the edge of the bed, unsure what to do next. My eyes had adjusted to the darkness, and I could see that all the girls, backlit by the large screens, were putting on a show. They were going through the motions as if they were getting it on or making out with each other, but no one really was. If smartphones had been around then, I'm pretty sure they would have been texting or checking their Instagram when Hef wasn't looking. Looking back, I don't know if Hef believed the charade. The girlfriends and Vicky, it seemed to me in particular, were desperate to bring as many new girls up in the bedroom as possible. With more fresh meat available for Hef, it was less likely that they'd be called on to have sex with their boyfriend as often. Hef, don't you want to be with the new girl? By the time I was able to wrap my head around what was happening, Hef had already moved on to Candace, then to a few of his actual girlfriends before finishing off by himself, as he always did. It was so brief that I can't even recall what it felt like beyond having a heavy body on top of mine. Vicky had tried to act all buddy-buddy, like we were just friends having fun together, like she wanted me to be a part of her club, but I had been used, plain and simple. At that time, I wanted to believe that Vicky actually liked me and only pushed half towards me because she wanted me to become a girlfriend. Like I said at the beginning, I was naive. The following morning, I woke up feeling terrible, and it wasn't just a hangover. Vicky escorted me back to the master bedroom to help me look for my clothes and purse. After asking one of the butlers where he might be, I finally found him in the library busying himself with notes for that Friday night's Mansion's movie screening. Before each movie, he always prepared a sort of speech. Before the sun even rose the following morning, these hustlers were already calculating just how many pennies they could squeeze out of the arrangement. Like a hit and run, these girls were bolt from the scene, never to be heard from again. While most, if not all, had hoped to land a pictorial, they disappeared off the face of the planet, never returning for another night out or party, despite being invited back. The runners always seemed like inexperienced girls, so I assumed they didn't come back because they didn't like what they had seen or done in Hell's bedroom while under the influence of alcohol, quaaludes, or both. I was freaked out and frankly ashamed by the experience. I knew that if I couldn't find a silver lining, I couldn't forgive myself for the night before. The other girls who would react as I did were probably the most damaged and affected, who couldn't so easily shrug off what we had been reduced to. For me, asking to move in, therefore, seemed like the next rational step, or so I convinced myself, and I decided to bite the bullet. I didn't have much to bring besides the few outfits I owned. Some makeup, my college books, and a handful of childish knickknacks like Disney princess picture frames and Star Wars figurines. Less than an hour later, I had moved my belongings into the bedroom that health secretary designated for me, and that was that. I was naive enough to believe that the decisions I made in the relative privacy of that dark cave of a bedroom would remain just that, private. To be totally honest, I was already ashamed enough, and I wanted to delay any further conversations until I had a better understanding of what my life would be like. I hobbled into the bathroom, feeling sick to my stomach and paralyzed with fear. In that instant, I couldn't have been more grateful to be inside this great big safe house. Of course, I soon discovered that we hadn't actually been bombed, but the reality was no less scary. The first few nights I slept in bedroom three, one of the biggest guest rooms in the mansion with three beds and a private bathroom, but like all the other guest rooms in the house, relatively plain. Though they never stayed over while I was there were still toys scattered across the bedroom floor, which made for an incredibly odd and frankly creepy juxtaposition. April was already residing in bedroom three, and she intimidated the hell out of me. She was taller and bigger boned than Hal's usual type and had an in your face personality. I had heard she used to be a stripper, even though Playboy has a somewhat hypocritical no stripper policy when it comes to Hal's idea of the wholesome playmate image. She also had a constant need to be the center of attention and would do whatever she needed to keep the spotlight on her, no matter how raunchy. She asked Hal if she could have uh, bedroom three was meant to house three girls. April scorning for herself would have been a major coup. I must say, I couldn't really blame them. April taking bedroom three meant that I would be moving to bedroom five. I couldn't have been more thrilled to be getting the privacy of my own room my very first week at the mansion. There was a tiny walk-in closet that housed a few clothing items I owned, plus a black Playboy brand dress Adriana had left behind. But that wasn't Adriana's only parting gift. There was an underground secret passage that led from the main house to the gym, which was in the basement level of the bathhouse. The adjacent bathroom truly looked like a time capsule, or the land that time forget. I also learned that the other girlfriends weren't so eager to help out the newbies since it was in their best interest for us to stumble around in order to make all of them look better. Apparently, we couldn't get into too much mischief outside the walls before that hour. This rule was not to be taken lightly. In the beginning, I'm sure the staffers thought I was terribly aloof and cold, but I was honestly just scared shitless. It was expected that we use this money to purchase clothing to wear for evening events as well as beauty treatments, hair, nails, waxing, etc., that weren't covered by his in-house account at Jose Ever Salon in Beverly Hills. Oftentimes, it would just be April and me flanking half at the main dinner table, at the main dining table. When Tina came to visit, I went into Vicky's room to try and make an effort to be friendly with the girls. My intention wasn't to be mean. I actually wanted these girls to like me. As you could have predicted, Tina's boyfriend didn't stick around long. I always assumed most men were just using the girls to check some Playboy bunny fantasy off their bucket list. I didn't know too many people in Los Angeles, and I quickly cut out the small group of friends I did have, either because I didn't want to be subjected to their judgment or because they started to call asking for invites to the mansion and other favors I couldn't grant. Most of the girls would have rather died than sit around the dining table with men 3 times their age, but I found house friends funny and interesting and genuinely enjoy listening to all of their stories. Usually, the movie nights included a steady rotation of Hal's favorite classic films, and I adore old movies, something we're truly starting to bond over. One of the most memorable was the tray of Johnson's baby oil, Vaseline, and Kleenex that was in every bathroom, in the grotto, and at the tennis courts and the pool bar. I still don't know whether to be disgusted or amused by those trays. At first, my constant attendance at all the events deemed boring by the other girls earned me a bit of good grace with them. They felt that I took some of the attention off their recurring absences while they busied about with their outside lives. Hap was usually awake by 10 a.m. for breakfast, then meandered down the hall to his office wing. In the beginning, I spent most days with Brittany, a nice girl that I had met at the Sunday pool parties. We go to the gym, tan, lay by the pool, and cruise around LA searching for bargain clothes. She lived in bedroom 2, the largest of the bedrooms, and was still celebrating the release of the issue in which she was the centerfold. In fact, Playmate features were often shot 8 to 12 months before they actually hit newsstands. She's the baby. She always gets what she wants. Before her, he used Buffy to play against Tina. I took note of this, but at the time I didn't want to believe a man as old and accomplished as Hal could be that petty and immature. I said, feeling lucky to be invited. As I knelt down to pet one of her 3 dogs, she picked up the phone next to her bed, pressed zero for the butler's pantry, and ordered a piece of chocolate cake and a glass of chocolate milk for breakfast. Hang out here while I get ready, Lisa demanded while hopping into the bathroom. She thanked the butler, plopped the tray down on her bed, started shoveling the cake in her mouth, and asked, "So, how do you like it here so far?" That had to be why he hadn't graced me with a necklace yet. In the few weeks I had been there, he had presented one to Sharon's beau, an upcoming centerfold whom he had met after me. She purred as she put down her fork and sauntered back into the bathroom. I had barely been at the mansion 2 weeks, and already I didn't seem to be making the cut. "See this?" she bragged, holding up her checkbook for me to see the balance, which hovered just above $25,000. So many things seemed to be grounds for dismissal that I was petrified to step out of line. While becoming an actress was still a passion of mine, it was always best to keep any auditions quiet. Eventually, I would receive offers for smaller parts in music videos and low budget films, but the hours often went past our curfew and the jobs rarely paid much, so they hardly seemed worth it. If anything, they would only land me in hot water with my boyfriend, who, as the weeks passed into months, appeared more and more controlling. It seemed my acting dreams were stalled for the time being. I thought having a rent-free roof over my head would make chasing my dreams so much easier, but that wasn't turning out to be the case. I had managed to hold on to my day shifts at Hooters for a few months. I guess Hef didn't feel particularly threatened by a lowly waitressing job, and I was able to start slowly paying off the debt I had amassed in college. As they do every year, Hooters chooses a waitress from each region to be featured in the Hooters magazine and participate in their national bikini contest. I was still hoping to break into the entertainment world and was eager to take any opportunity, even if it was just a pageant title. I had already agreed to do it and was totally perplexed by the strange tantrum he was throwing. Because you working there makes me jealous, he yelled, his hands flying in the air, doing his best to well up some more fake tears. In the months I worked at Hooters, Health never once expressed feeling threatened by my being there. In hindsight, that incident should have been a blaring indicator of what my life was going to be like behind those gates, but I still had high hopes. I began through a short laugh. The day before the event, half his girlfriends and his staff, including his longtime assistant Mary O'Connor, his personal photographer, and a team of security, boarded a chartered private jet at Van Nuys Airport and headed to New York. The half and Tina occupied the hotel's regal presidential suite, while the rest of us were given gorgeous rooms with breathtaking views of the city. There were many perks to being one of Hugh Hefner's girlfriends, including the VIP treatment everywhere we went. I'll be honest, being treated like royalty wasn't necessarily a hard routine to fall into. With my clothing allowance, I was able to buy a retro-style Betsy Johnson black and white ball gown. I'd never been to an event like this in my life, let alone the arm of the guest of honor. As we piled on each side of half for photographs outside the ballroom, I began shadowing the other girlfriends. Terrified to make any kind of noticeable mistake, I mimicked the girls who appeared to be veterans at this point. I didn't want to seem unfriendly or rude, so I answered her questions as politely as possible and excused myself to follow the rest of the girlfriends into the ballroom. Vicky hissed as I sat down at the large banquet table closest to the stage. She clearly misled me in the beginning. I guess I shouldn't have been so shocked that she was trying to mislead others too. But exactly who did she think she was fooling? I've read just about every issue of Playboy since I was 15 years old, began the host Jimmy Kimmel. And not once did I see a playmate say that one of her tone-ons was a 75-year-old man. By the time I had arrived, fewer and fewer opportunities were being offered to girlfriends to appear in the magazine, which meant the pack was getting restless. As always, Vicky was eager to bring as many girls up into the bedroom as possible. It seemed to me that she made it her mission to lure every new playmate up to the bedroom to pay their dues. I was too naive to realize at the time, but Half was the catalyst for all the drama I was to experience at the mansion. During one of my first nights at the mansion, the girlfriends had been together on a Friday evening and told Half they didn't feel like going out that night. Half belonged to a girlfriend who wanted a curfew extension, knowing full well that his small remark would pin a bullseye on my back for weeks. They began resenting me for the very reason they initially accepted me. They all tried the best they could to recreate that ideal of Pamela Anderson. I, on the other hand, wasn't interested in transforming myself into a spearmint rhino version of the Baywatch beauty. I wanted to look good enough to be a playmate, but still hold on to some of what made me unique. And frankly, avoid looking like a blow-up doll. I liken it to being the dorky girl in the lunchroom who eats her sandwich quietly with her nose buried deep in the book, praying she didn't attract the unwanted attention of popular kids. After being identified by the other girlfriends as persona non grata, I had become the victim of their ruthless, mean girl ing. Any playmates or playmate candidates they befriended would join in, mocking me as well. When I would send things downstairs to be laundered, they would never make their way back. We all sent ours to be cleaned before an upcoming event, but only mine went missing. Even though his presence didn't necessarily protect me from the bullying, I felt somehow safer. With my clothing allowance, I was able to go to Trashy Lingerie, a popular boutique, to pick out my costume despite its name. It was way out of my price range before. The outfit was supposed to be sexy, but once again, I had chosen something quite conservative compared to the body hugging ensembles the other girlfriends chose. It wasn't as exclusive as it might sound, as many of the girlfriends brought their female friends who joined us for our entrance. Half trailed behind us, wearing the black and white striped prisoner of love jailbird costume he wore every year. After the short photo session was finished, I followed the group out into the tented backyard and towards Hef's table next to the dance floor. The red ones are the best. Vicky snapped at me with a cold smile as soon as I reached Hef's table with my green shot in hand. She was right. The red ones did taste the best. As girlfriends, the protocol was that we stayed at Hef's table all night. We could get up and dance as long as we stayed on the dance floor in front of the table. The only time we were allowed to leave was to go to the bathroom. One of the biggest running jokes among the girls was when a girlfriend who owned a pet capuchin monkey she liked to tote around for attention took Jennifer Lopez's ex-husband Chris Judd up to her room to show him her monkey. Of course, there were always girlfriends who snuck back down to the parties after Hef was asleep to chase men or hobnob with celebrities, but they were always very discreet about it. By the next afternoon, Hef's video department would have a tape sitting outside Hef's door to highlight reel from the last night's party, copies of which we sent to local news stations. The effect the particular business venture had on the brand was questionable, however. It helped my rise through the girlfriend ranks to become among Hef's favorites. Over time, I convinced myself that I did actually care for this man, that I wanted to be in a relationship with him despite the fact that I didn't really know him. Oftentimes, I would have to bite my tongue. Like Beauty locked up in the Beast Castle, I developed my own brand of Stockholm Syndrome, identifying with my captor. On the outside, Hef appeared to be the perfect gentleman, an act that paired nicely with my delusions. By the time Christmas rolled around, I had already been at the mansion for 4 months. The mansion was always decorated from top to bottom. A formal Christmas dinner was held every year, and he spared no expense under the Christmas tree. My understated choice wasn't gaudy enough for Tina, however. She returned my gift in exchange for a Louis Vuitton bucket purse, the brand's logo emblazoned all over it. Despite working regularly with Playmate Promotions, rumor had it she ran through her savings in just a few months and ended up moving back to her hometown after all. But I couldn't help but think that they've been right. It proved difficult though, because we had to make sure that our allowance always appeared well spent. This would always send him into a tizzy, and Tina would end up having to go to bat for herself and the other girls to make sure I helped them lower the allowance. Although Hef could easily buy each girl a car 10 times over if he wanted, he knew better than to buy the vehicles outright. Happily and gratefully, I accepted, even though the car was way too big and gaudy for my taste. No matter how beautiful they were, these women would pick themselves apart, ordering one procedure after the next. Without school and work, I quickly became bored and filled my days with activities typical of a 22-year-old girl: shopping, working out, getting my belly button pierced, things like that. I got a small Playboy bunny tattoo in the middle of my lower back. Talk about a tramp stamp, because I thought it was cute. Fun way to commemorate this crazy experience. This was back when I thought my mansion stay was going to be short-lived, stepping stone that would lead me to something bigger. At the time, my only real beauty routine consisted of bleaching my own roots with Clairol Ultra Blue from the drugstore. I actually hadn't been to a salon in my life. None of the girls had bothered to share this piece of information with me because keeping me as homely as possible was in their best interest. Finally, I found out about the salon privileges when Vicky had lost patience with me using the strong smelling dye in our shared bathroom. I felt like I was finally beginning to look like the glamorous playmate I had always wanted to be. I never really been fond of my nose. It was a little too big for my taste, but I rarely thought about it. It wasn't until I started seeing countless pictures of myself day after day that I realized it photographed even bigger than it was. I had spent time doing my research and decided to enlist the help of the same doctor who had performed a nose job on one of Help's former girlfriends. The surgery so successful that Help said he'd never seen such a transformation before. After dinner one night, I nervously brought the quote from the plastic surgeon to his room and shakily explained that I wanted to get my nose fixed. It felt like a victory at the time, but I now recognize that it was one of those watershed moments in life. Just as I was beginning to move to Half's room, Tina dropped another bomb. Being tossed back and forth like a useless rag doll by the man I had come to look to for approval did a massive number on my self-esteem. The back area of Hef's closet contained a vanity, an Allen dresser, and closet space lining the walls. There was just enough room to walk between the Allen and the vanity, but I had a hard time believing that an elegant man like Hef, or so I assumed, preferred the nasty old carpet to the classic hardwood floors that so complemented the rest of the room. The sudden shift in the way some of those girls acted was completely obvious and shameless, but I suppose they thought I was too dumb to notice that I would be so grateful to be treated kindly for a change that I wouldn't object. The reality that I wouldn't object. I graciously accepted their gifts and their compliments, but I wasn't stupid. And I never forgot how they treated me before, when I was just the lowest blonde on the totem pole. I always find it so hard to believe because Health has such a deep appreciation for the gorgeous film stars of the golden age of Hollywood. In fact, it had long been the physical attribute I was most proud of, mainly because it was the only thing I had that all the other girlfriends, with their extensions and clip-in locks, had to buy. Save for the blonde hair, the big boobs, and our shared address, I had absolutely nothing in common with these girls. After all, he worshipped Marilyn and often cited her as the ideal in feminine beauty. When I got back to the mansion, complete with a curl bob, black eyeliner, and red lips, I sat down at my vanity. This is a fun look, I thought, admiring my new reflections I heard help shuffle into the bedroom. I couldn't help the tears that began streaming down my face, ruining the makeup I had been so excited about. He paused and turned back around to survey my reaction. But that's how disagreements always ended with Hal. He would just stomp off, and you were left to pick the pieces of your self worth up off the floor. I curled up on the vanity stool and sobbed for what felt like forever in the one little corner of this whole giant mansion that was supposed to be my own. The whole episode made me feel beyond ugly, as if all the beauty products and cosmetic surgery in the world couldn't make me look good. I felt like an idiot for even trying to be beautiful. I said, accepting the beads and watching her walk over to Hal's backgammon table. I mean, you had to be getting paid to be that bubbly, right? Immediately, I spotted Miss Chiquita Banana sitting on the bench in a clueless inspired plaid skirt and matching top. Yeah, I said, feeling the tension in my shoulders begin to melt away. I didn't feel like I needed to be on guard, and I could sense that she genuinely wanted to be my friend. And I think I'm going to stop there. And I think I want to finish this. So we stopped at chapter 4, and that is Down the Rabbit Hole. And it actually has a subtitle, Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales of a Former Playboy Bunny. So that was Holly Madison, read in the perspective of my mini-me. Down the Rabbit Hole, Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales of a Former Playboy Bunny. So next show we'll continue. Or I might just do a special segment. Who knows how it's gonna go. But I feel like doing wet again. Maybe because I'm feeling wet. Anyway, it's still mini me From a mini-me's perspective, that's 9. To her man, that's also 9. And going through heaven, being emancipated. Okay, so it is a Chris Brown. But I don't know, what was a boogie with a hoodie? I don't think this is the one I did. Let's see, oh naughty. Oh, a boogie with a hoodie. Oh, okay. A boogie with a hoodie. Is that seriously someone's name? A boogie with a hoodie? Wait a minute, who is a boogie with a hoodie? A boogie with a hoodie? A boogie with a hoodie? That is really his name. A boogie with the hoodie. That is funny. That didn't even come up last time. A boogie with the hoodie. Like a boogie with a hoodie. Whatever. A boogie with the hoodie. Here we go. Wet, wet, wet. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe. Just trying to change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. Trying to change your life. Oh, babe. Get you out of line, why you waste my time? I'm trying to smoke, trying to get high, see it in my eyes. I know she playing both sides, the bitch telling lies. But that take give her high, she down for the ride. Them hating bitches kill the vibe, and live your life. Bad bitches in a white umbrella life. Some bad bitches on my side, make them all out. Smoking on the finest ganja like China White. But all these bitches that she used to it, she wanna go way up. Okay, baby, if you're used to it. And I know that you are grown woman, and I know that you know what you're doing. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, bad. I'm a king, baby. You from hood, you a queen, baby. Ass fat, but it can't fit in them jeans, baby. Match your wife with the stars, baby. Street, I'm supposed to really be behind bars, baby. Really want to be faithful, but that's sorry, baby. Yeah. I got the pussy first and then I ignored you. You fuck another and you ain't loyal. I told you bring up in is boring. Ask me what you are, we just cordial. It's that I can get wet, turn into a pool. Help me count the money in the trap, then she go back to school. If I play with the base, it's breaking news. Got 50 points on the neck, that's matching jewels. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe, I just want to show you off. I don't want to do you wrong. Mirror on the wall, who's the one that's wrong? I get money when I want. I when I want. Baby, you can take it off. I'm there with the sauce. Whole lot of can't remember what it costs. I'm feeling like a ball. Spit on it and lick it off. I know we keep running it up. Tell me what you really want. I know I can break you off. Come here and break you off. If you ever wanna, can I be the one you call? If you wanna be a star, I can tell you what it costs. I was gonna put you on. I was gonna put you on. I was gonna change your life. But you wanna break your heart. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe. Just trying to change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. Just trying to change your life. Oh, babe. Change your whole sauce, you a little spicy, yeah. Now you're dealing with the boss, I might treat you right, yeah. No more shit, baby, baby, you should be icy, yeah. You keep hanging around me, you talking like you like me, yeah. Got my own lingo, I can change your whole ego. I be super in the money, baby, with torpedo. I ain't like these tripping niggas, they didn't my stilo. I'ma call you back with my shoot and silo. I might change my old ways for you, baby. I can change your whole wave. Now you're wavy. Now you're glamorous. I'm not your element. I'm too reckless for you. It's evident. Wet, 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 wet. Oh, babe. Just trying to change your life. I'm just trying to change your life. Just trying to change your life. Oh, babe. I like this new Chris Brown that I found that mini me can listen to. You know, sometimes when you like a Rihanna, you can't really listen to a Chris Brown. So, anyhow, maybe I can find something else to do that I used to do with the Chris Brown. But you know, since mini me is so different, it's a totally different audience. So let's see. 2012 was one that I would do. Now let's try to see if I can do that one in Mini-Me. So in 2012, that would make my Mini-Me 4-year old. Okay, let's try 2012. So this is my Mini-Me to her man, who is also 9. But at this time, they were around 4. Feather mulling him on. But if the sky was turning red, I know we'd be safe right here in my bed, laying face to face. Oh boy, I love the way you sound when you rain on me. So tonight let's act it out. Show you how it's gonna be. I'm gonna kiss your other set of lips. Hold your body by your legs and hips. The world can't end until we finish. Boy, we gone. We gonna do it like it's about to be the end of the world. And they depended on us to make earth shake in love as we go down, lay down, telling me to go harder, go harder, telling me to go deeper, go deeper. I feel your knees getting weaker and weaker, no longer if you just lay down, lay down. All these vibrations from your legs, massaging my back. I got your body shivering, cause we're covered in sweat. Oh boy, I like the way it opens up. When you throw it back, baby, well, it might be too much, babe. Babe, if you keep doing that, I got that pillow for your knees right here. Baby, can you make it disappear? Your voice is the last thing I'm gonna hear. Then I wanna make you holler. We gon' do it like it's about to be the end of the world. And they depended on us to make earth shake in love as we lay down, telling me to go harder, go harder. I'm gonna stop. Rewind. So I'm gonna repeat. This is for mini me, 9, and her man is 9. So in 2012, we were like both 4. So they really demand. But if the sky was turning red, I know we'd be safe right here in my bed, laying face to face. Oh boy, I love the way you sound when you rain on me. So tonight let's act it out. Show you how it's gonna be. I'm gonna kiss your other set of lips. Hold your body by your legs and hips.
And have your attention, please. The Petersburg Public Library will be closing in 30 minutes. Please bring your items to the customer service at this time for checkout.
To start this over again. Okay, here we go. I'll start over. I'm getting into it. The only difference is I'm using an age and it's 9. And there's something significant about 9. And that's really what it's about. For the more than demand. What if the sky was turning red? I know we'd be safe right here in my bed, laying face to face. Oh boy, I love the way you sound when you rain on me. So tonight let's act it out. Show you how it's gonna be. I'm gonna kiss your other set of lips. Hold your body by your legs and hips. The world can't end until we finish. Oh, we down. We gonna do it like it's about to be the end of the world. And they depended on us to make earth shake in love as we lay down, telling me to go harder, telling me to go deeper, go deeper. I feel your knees getting weaker and weaker, no longer if you just lay down, all these vibrations from your legs, massaging my back. I got your body shivering, 'cause we're covered in sweat. Oh, I like the way it opens up when you throw it back, babe. Oh, it might be too much, oh, babe. If you keep doing that, I got that pillow for those knees right here. Baby, can you make it disappear? Your voice is the last thing I'm gonna hear. Then I wanna make you holler. We gon' do it like it's about to be the end of the world. And they depended on us to make earth shake in love as we lay down, telling me to go harder, telling me to go deeper. I feel your needs getting weaker and weaker, go longer if you lay down. Do it like we only got one. Baby, let's pretend we only got one night. one last time. Let me take my time, do it to you right. Buildings and bridges may be falling down, but that won't stop me from turning that thing around. Yeah. Won't you come on over? We can treat it like it's the motherfucking end of the world. They depended on us to make earth shake in love as we lay down, telling me to go harder, telling me to go deeper, go deeper. I feel me getting weaker and weaker, go longer if you just lay down. Going hard in the pain. You think I can't? Okay, so that's been the end of our extension of the Late Late Show with BT. Bye.